So there it is. Cut to the right size now. I just got to position it. See if I line this up exactly with the front here. When I cut this, I squared this edge with the saw and lined this up, and then marked my back and cut it off, just so I don't mess it up. So with the guide in here, once this is tied down, this will slide all the way across the table. And I can lock it out anywhere. And then it'll stay. Alright, so I got my top ready. It is exactly where I need it to be. Now I want to cut this runner that's just going to stick to the front 2x that comes off. And I don't know if you can see that angle on there. So I've got this piece, the angle piece, cut out on the saw. And I think I'm just going to brad nail it and glue it down. That's all I'm going to do. So I finished the slot for the guide on the table saw. It goes all the way across now. So now I can cut wider pieces of wood on here. What I'm going to work on is finishing the miter slots to go out a little more, so when I set up my box, I can go all the way across this. I want to make a miter box. And for the router table, I'm going to have a little one in here that I'll use the same box. And I'm going to use this to build the backer for the router. Now I'm just going to cut into a piece of scrap here to get my exact distance from the edge of my router to the edge of my slot here, so I can measure it out and set up a straight edge on the table. So I was middle of working on my bench here, and the wife hollered and said one of the neighbor's tree branches fell off. So we went out and got it. I now have an indoor tree for my garage temporarily. House plant. Or garage plant. Well, I've laid this out the absolute best I can. As close as I possibly can. This is the part that always makes me nervous, because if it's wrong, I can't fix that. I've got it clamped down at this end, and I've got it backed up to my stop here on this end, on both my marks I've made here. It's 2 45/64 from the edge of my router to the edge of the blade. This was a whole piece, and I cut it down to 5/8 wide, and then just run the blade through here to cut a groove into it the size of these little lips, because the Ryobi's got these lips on it, and I don't want to try and cut the lips out. So I made a slider that fits in there perfectly, and it's nice and tight, slides perfect, and the hardwood isn't going to be a problem. And I should be able to slide it right into these. Now I've run these out 24 1/4 inches from the end of my blade when it's raised up. I figure that's as far as I'm going to need to go. So I'm going to run one here, I'll run another one over on this side, and then one over for the router when I'm finished. That's the first cut, and I got in there perfect, didn't hit anything, come out nice. I'm going to take a piece of sandpaper in there and smooth it up, but that is right on perfect. Straight with the blade. I'm going to do one more like that over here, and one more on this end of the table that goes all the way up this whole side. But that's going to work out perfect. Oh yeah, slides in there nice, perfectly tight. Now I need to lay out where my router table is going to go in there. I'm going to cut me a square insert that I can take the whole router out and put it back in, and I'm going to have a hole in the top that I can adjust the height with. But I want to put one more miter slot into this side here. Perfect. Ow, sides are still sharp. So what I've been doing after I cut these, besides running my finger down it and slicing it, is taking a piece of 180 here and just sanding down these edges, just like you do on the outside edge, so they're not razor sharp. And then once I get the top sanded down so they're nice and smooth, I sand the inside. That way my slide for my sled's gonna go through there real easy. Later on I might try and find something to coat this that's not too thick, just to seal up that particle board, because I'm afraid if something ever gets spilt in there, that particle board's gonna swell up and blow out. And then I'll be back at square one. Yeah, this is where we're at. Got our table in, got our miters in. I got our tested our runners. They all slide through all the sides. These things work really nice. All I got left to do now is do the actual router table. My whole goal is to get to this point. I'm going to use a piece of scrap wood to cut my indent out. I'm going to put a piece of 1/4 inch ply that sets down in here flush and have all my adjustments from the top. But I'm going to leave it so if I want, I can unscrew it and lift the whole router out. So the piece of ply I'm going to use for my router insert is 1/4 inch, and it's that cabinet finish. It's real nice. And I measured out 10 inches here that I'm going to cut off. I'll make a 10 by 10 insert is what I'm going to make. I don't have a fancy jig for this, and I don't have the right bits, the right bearings on it. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my insert and getting it in place here where I'm going to want it to be. I'm squaring it up with my table. Exactly. I'm going to screw this down just so I have something solid to measure my template off. Because all I'm using is a flush cut bit. And I'm going to set it right down on this table and cut out my edges. And I need to have pieces pinned down on the outside exact. So with that exactly where it's going to go, and I'm going to cut out the center later, it's not going to matter if I mess up the tabletop right in the center. Double check. Get this exact. And I'm not so much concerned with exactly where it is right there, as long as it's within a 1/16. I kind of want it in the middle of my table. And I'm going to put my guide on there just to make sure it's square with that. That is exactly square. Now, I've got the width of my router set here from the edge of my router to the edge of my blade exactly. So now all I got to do is go around this and put a stop in. I can actually use my guide here for one of the sides. Lock that down. That is not going anywhere. Alright, I've got my 4 sides put on. I'm going to remove my centerpiece here. And I should be able to drop the router right in there. So now I should be able to take my router right around those edges and cut my corners out. And then I'll just chew a little bit out of the middle here, keeping all the pressure on the outside here. And once that's done, I'll cut my center out with the jigsaw. Should be interesting. I'm going to take a little more off the center here, just so this plate has a little wider of an edge to sit on. That should be plenty. Give it about an inch on each edge to sit on. So I cut out all my sides. I'm I'm going to finish off the corners with this handsaw here. Now to get my corners off here, I've just clamped my orbital sander to the bench. And I'm just going to eyeball it. I held a little washer here and marked my corners so I can kind of get them ideal. We'll see how this goes. Look at that. There's some tiny gaps in the sides here, real tiny. I could probably get it better with a belt sander in some time than an orbital sander. But this come out beautiful. That fits right in there, nice and flush. Now all I gotta do is mount my router. That is awesome. I'm really happy with that. For the adjustment knob on my router, I've attached a socket to the adjuster with hot glue. It seems to be holding really well. And that'll come up through my plate. I've got all my holes drilled for the screws and countersunk in there. And then I've got a hole drilled for the adjustment so I can adjust the router height from the top with a ratchet. Now all you gotta do is bolt the router on it and see if it all works out. Are you guys still here? You really should go subscribe. Thanks for supporting my channel.